Every time I throw out a business idea to one of my friends or a founder, almost always I'm met with something along the lines of, oh, well, I'm sure that already exists. Nowadays, it's even worse because they say, oh, well, ChatGPT could just build that. But they are missing something. These people are missing the fact that execution is everything. It doesn't matter if somebody else can do it, it matters that somebody does do it. And that includes ChatGPT. And I want to talk about this because ChatGPT has limits. AI, LLMs have limits, and I think that most founders are forgetting where AIs fall short. There is an ancient Japanese framework that explains this. That's what I'm going to go over in this video. My name is Colvin Walker, and I help startups grow. Today, we're going to be talking about something called Shu Ha Ri and how this applies to AIs. Okay, so here's the thing. Shu Ha Ri is this Japanese concept. It's a concept of the progression to the path of mastery, and it is way deeper than I even have any right to be teaching about it. It's usually translated as follow the rules, break the rules, transcend the rules, right? So Shu is the first stage, and that is when you are a beginner. You're following the rules like an artist who first has to learn the rules. Then in the phase of Ha, this is when the artist is learning to break the rules tastefully, right? You learn when it's appropriate to break the rules or drop the rules, right? And then Ri is when you actually transcend the rules. You have no need for the rules because you're doing your entirely new thing. Picasso, I think, if my art history memory is good enough, I think Picasso founded the Neo-Cubist movement, and he is an excellent painter. He can follow the rules, he can break the rules, but Neo-Cubism is not about rules. It is an entirely new expression, and it's Picasso himself that became that. So that's this concept of Shu Ha Ri. An AI can definitely do Shu, and it can usually with prompting do Ha. It'll break the rules if you tell it to, but really most of the taste has to come from whoever's directing the LLM. And I believe that unless a like earth-shaking change to the underlying technology of LLMs happens, I do not believe that LLMs will ever be able to achieve Ri. And I don't know. I know we're still early days, but LLMs as being predictive models of averages, when you ask them for advice, they give you the average. And if you know better and you can prompt them into giving you better than the average, that's possible. But I truly believe that the machine itself won't ever transcend the rules, except maybe in certain fields, like some of the machine learning tools that are in math. These are not LLMs. These are mathematical machine learning models that have solved age-old math problems because they're finding disparate disciplines and connecting them, which is what LLMs and machine learning is great at, these deep learning models. But even so, I don't know that that would be called Ri in any other field besides mathematics, where you're actually just connecting existing things and you're not transcending. This does not just apply to creative pursuits. This applies to business, this applies to personal life, this applies to relationships. To make a concrete business example, let's just take accountants, right? It's obvious that you can learn accounting 101 and you can follow the rules. You can learn to follow the rules, and then you can learn to evade taxes like many wealthy people's accountants can help them do. When you get to the Ri, we can start to look at examples like Taiichi Ono and Shigeo Shingo at Toyota brought in the lean manufacturing and turned it like it stopped being accounting and operations and it became essentially one system at the Toyota production system at the time. And they truly did transcend regular accounting, and then the effects of that are still being felt today, right? So let's take this through an example of an idea that I had, gave a friend, and then I actually vibe coded it myself to kind of prove a point. But I had an idea for a meal planning app, right? If I just said, hey, ChatGPT, make me a meal planning app. It's going to give us your average meal planning app. There will be recipes, like a weekly thing. Maybe you get some calorie estimates, right? And this is going to be the most basic, simple app. Even if you scale up AI's abilities 1,000-fold, and let's say this comes off completely polished, perfectly coded, production ready, it still is going to be, at the end of the day, it's just going to be meals, right? It can reliably get you here, and you do not have to work to do this. The problem is Nobody is ever going to buy this app because apps like Mealime exist. And there are better meal apps out there. The average will not compete in a marketplace like this, right? Especially now that you have people who can churn out AI slop apps with a little bit of extra polish. You're never going to do it, right? But here's where we go. Okay, so let's say that now we want an app that actually breaks some rules. Okay, I'm gonna sneeze. Oh, that's terrible. Okay. So obviously a meal planning app where we don't really put in any extra effort is not going to get us very far. So what does a meal planning app, Mealime, I love Mealime, that is my personal app of choice, not sponsored by them, but would love for everybody to go and check out Mealime. But what does it mean for one of these apps to progress from Shu to Ha? So we have this kind of basic example, and I'll redraw this, of what a meal planning app entails, right? It entails some recipes, weekly stats, and maybe some nutrition information, right? This is the rule, right? This is the average meal planning app, and it's simple, and it's basically just a spreadsheet with labels on it and a cookbook involved. Now let's take this and imagine what a Ha level meal planning app entails. And LLMs struggle to break the rules. If you've ever tried to prompt an LLM into breaking rules or into following rules only some of the time, it usually does a really bad job. Just the other day, I was trying to prompt, I had like 1,000 images that needed alt tags, and you need alt tags to be useful to blind people. That's the purpose of image alt tags. But you also don't want to miss this opportunity for relevant keywords, but you really should not keyword stuff, right? And so there's kind of this artful balance between like, well, is the keyword, does it happen to be also useful to a person who can't see, right? And maybe I'll get torn apart by marketers for talking about it like this, but obviously I'm respectful. As I'm doing this, I'm trying to tell ChatGPT like, hey, don't keyword stuff in these alt tags. You can't do that. And then it would completely go away and it would avoid keywords like the plague. And then I'd say, well, like you can use the terms when they make sense, you know, when they're actually helpful, because a lot of the time the phrases that people are using to search these terms are the helpful phrases that people use to describe these terms. And so I had this hard time getting it to have that artful balance of breaking the rules some of the time. And this is where my initial thought on Shu Ha Ri began, was me thinking, man, AIs are bad at artfully breaking rules, right? Let's come back to this meal planning app, right? What does a meal planning app look like that artfully breaks the rules? What does it look like for a meal planning app to artfully break the rules, right? To enter this state of Ha. If the rule is this boring kind of templated meal planning app, maybe it has recipes that you can swipe on, right? It's got cards and a stack of cards that you can go left or right, swipe left and right on these recipe cards. It builds your meals for you, right? And what did that take? I guarantee you that without implanting this idea in an LLM's head, you would never get this output, right? Maybe you could do it if you got around it by saying like, do an examination of social media meals and ways that apps become addictive to users in the modern era, and then maybe it would generate this idea as one of a million, but more likely you would just get like Instagram. It'd be like, oh, you should do Instagram where people can post photos of the menus they make. Okay, great, but you still had to put that idea in its head. You still had to do the prompting, because without real prompting, LLMs tend to not break the rules. And even if they do by default, maybe you could argue that like Grok breaks some social rules, but the thing is that is in its system prompt, that is in its training, it's intended to do that. That is just the creators placing the Ha inside of it, right? And truly, like maybe this does break the rules, but what does Re look like in a meal planning app? What does Re look like? And truly, this is where you transcend a simple meal planning app. And in my opinion, maybe I'm not transformative enough to truly know, but the idea that I have for an app, okay, is, and I would love it if somebody else developed this, right? I am vibe coding it. It's live at samiz.cooking. It's very, very early stages, and frankly, it's not polished. But the technology underneath of it is actually quite sophisticated. I'm really proud of it. But so this is my idea. You give it your fitness goals and it will generate recipes for you, fitness goals also like diet, and then you give it your health metrics. And it becomes a personal nutritionist. It generates your meal plans for you. It tells you exactly how many calories you need, how many grams of protein you need, how much fat you need. It takes that all into account, builds your meal plan for you. Agentically grocery shops for you. So it goes to Walmart.com and sends your groceries to your door. And again, I would love if somebody built this. I am kind of toying around with the idea, but frankly, somebody else will do it better than me. And I would love for this to exist, even if I had to pay for it. So then it will get your groceries for you by shopping online for you, send them to your door twice a week so that you have the meals to choose from. And then it will generate a taste preference profile for you. But then you can scan someone else's QR code. We'll make a QR code right here. And that will take their taste profile preferences and it will find recipes that you both enjoy so that you can say, hey, this is going to be a good restaurant for you to go eat at. This is going to be a good recipe for you guys to make it for date night. This is going to be something that all 4 of your kids will enjoy. I'm not exactly sure where that goes. And then basically, this is a huge part of I hate ordering at restaurants. And so I just want this thing to order for me. I just want to say, hey, this restaurant sounds good. I'm headed there tonight with a friend. What should I get? I want it to know my taste preferences and say, this is the thing that you're going to like the most. I feel that this more detailed thing becomes something different. It's not really just a meal planning app. It's sort of a fitness, nutritionist, trainer, taste concierge thing. But truly, I think that if somebody built this, they would own this space. This is not something that you can vibe code in a day. I know because I tried. This is not something that you can do at scale with the levels of security that vibe coding is going to give you because you're going to be dealing with people's health data, right? There's a little bit of a barrier to entry, and this is not something that an AI is going to come up with on its own. Even something like this, where it's like, oh, wow, you're combining a couple different ideas in unexpected ways. AIs just simply will not get here. They simply will not get here. The thing that requires, and frankly, even the thing that Ha requires, is vision. And this is what founders have. A good founder has vision, an LLM does not, and it will not unless something very fundamental changes about the technology. Your LLM cannot create vision for you, and I defy anybody to go and have an LLM set a vision for them because, frankly, it will be the most average thing. I've played with the idea of having an AI be my boss, but frankly, and don't get me wrong, there is a time and a place for that, but that's an accountability issue. The problem is that I had to inject myself into the AI first, and then my thoughts reflected back at me using that mirror. That was useful. But asking an LLM out of the box to be your boss, it's only going to be as good of a boss as you are capable of being. Similarly, it's only going to have the vision that you have, and vision is what founders have always had. Even when execution was more expensive, the vision was the thing that made the founders able to execute, right? It is all about execution, but the price of execution comes down, the value of vision goes up. I do think that this is encouraging news because it makes space for the human element. And I think that a lot of people feel right now that, AI is going to come in for your jobs or coming for your ideas. Or I know that even venture capital right now is hurting a little bit because execution is what they were paying for. Like they were enabling people to execute via finances. And now execution has gotten cheaper. And so it's almost like, wait, did venture capital get replaced? And of course not. But the point is, this is encouraging news for founders, for developers, for VCs, because frankly, we are still needed and will still be needed for, in my opinion, the foreseeable future. Admittedly, there is not a ha or a re to certain things. For example, tic-tac-toe. There is no transcending tic-tac-toe. The games which are solved to humans, there's not a lot of room to innovate there. There's not a lot of room to transcend or even break the rules artfully, right? And so, yes, my point is that there will be certain things where humans are not needed. And I think that that's clear. And that's always been clear. We needed humans to be our alarm clocks for a long time. And then we needed them to be our computers. And now we're back to having a neural network as our computers, which is, I think, fun. But as we kind of enter this phase where, oh no, there may be some people whose jobs are replaced, I think so many founders do tend to get discouraged and start to think that, well, I'm not needed. And they don't realize how small that number still is in the AI era, how small the number of jobs and areas where we won't need people are, because people are what makes it work, what makes it transcend, how we can break the rules in ways that LLMs can't. And people will be in the comments arguing with me and saying like, oh, LLMs, they're gonna get better and better. Like, this is still early days. But when you look at what has happened as parameters have grown, there were these huge increases in performance at first. We've seen diminishing returns through parameters. Now we're using architectural tricks like having models coordinating models and just hooking it up to more things. And it's amazing what agentic AI can do, because basically it speaks the language of information, and we built our whole world around information architecture. So don't get me wrong, it's incredible what AI can do, and AI will absolutely be replacing people. But this is kind of that same question of, we are going to need seniors. We are going to need founders. We are going to need people with vision, because AI LLMs won't be able to do that. The gap between what AI can build and what the market will pay for is where the founder lives. AI cannot build things that the market will pay for in meaningful ways. And that gap right there is the founder. And it always has been. It was just developers before, and now it's AI. I'm just gonna retry all this. The gap between what AI can build and what the market will pay for is where the founder lives. And the execution across that gap, that is the business. That is the business.